Hello, this is Mr. Castro Science coming to you live from my shed where I am teaching this quarter. I wanted to give you a little tutorial on how to create a Google drawing and using that Google drawing to make graphs, different types of charts. I'm going to look at three different types of charts. I'm going to look at a line graph, a bar graph, and a pie chart. So I'm going to show you how to use Google Drawing today to create those three different types. The first thing you do, like you saw me, just go to New or Create if you're in an assignment, scroll down to More, select the Google Drawing. Now it brings up that Google Drawing, title it, whatever the graph may be, and then you need to go ahead and introduce either pictures or lines and shapes to create that graph. I'm going to do a line graph first. A line graph is useful for changes over time. I'm going to graph time on the x-axis and then my units along the y. So I'm just going to create a line here. You can see there's different types of line. I actually want a line with an arrow. And I can move this. I can hold down Shift and it makes my line go into straighter lines. I'm going to change the line weight to make it a little thicker because I want it to be a little thicker. I'm going to select another line, start at this, creating my vertice, holding Shift. If I don't hold Shift, I can go at any angle, but if I hold Shift, it goes straight up. Now I got two lines and a good start to my line graph. Now I'm going to make points along this line just by selecting the line. I'll make one here, Shift, and I'll create that. Oops, that didn't turn out what I wanted. So you can always use the back arrow to undo. That's a quick way to do it. Let's do this line up here and see if it works. Line, down, Shift, there it goes. And I want it to be a little bit thicker than that so I can actually see it. So I like that. I'm going to go to the arrow to select it. Control C copies it, and then Control V pastes it. I want a couple of those. I'm going to make a couple, Control V several times. Take this, and I can see once it's spaced out about right. That one actually indicated the right spacing. That one's too far. Okay, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places I can plot my times along the bottom. Now I need to make my y-axis for my units. So again, I'm going to select the line. This time I'm going to go horizontal line. That looks about right. Control C to copy, Control V to paste it several times. Click the arrow to select those, and then you can move them to where you want them to be. Oops, and I can even use the arrow on the keyboard to move it over a little bit if it's not in the right spot. All right. Several things that all graphs need. Every graph needs a title. So I'm going to click on the text box up top. I'm going to give this graph a title. Graphing data points from glacier melt. Use your data that you collected and title it based off of that. This is too small. I want it to be 18. There we go. So now on the bottom, I need to insert my time points. So text box, this is going to be whatever data point it may be, June 2010. The next one could be another time, June 2011. You can see how that got messed up. Well, that's because this is too narrow, so I need to widen it by dragging a little bit. Then I can move it back to where I want it to be. And you can see I can continue to go along for whatever data set that I have. I can put those dates in there. I would do the same thing for the units up on the y-axis. If I had whatever the melt amount was, and we can just imagine 2 liters. And then for our second data point, 4 liters. moving on up, and we would want these units to go up in regular repeating amounts. So I don't want to go 2, 7, 19, 27, and hit whatever my data points are. I want it to go up in regular repeating. If it's at 1.5, or let's say 2.5, I could find that spot in between these 2 points. But I would just continue up in regular repeating units. I also need to label these. This is time of year, and this is, I'll show you what I'm going to do here. This is amount of glacier melt in liters. If I say in liters, then I don't need that L. Now this is going across and it's in the wrong spot, but I can, if it's selected, if I select the text box and I select this circle, then I can rotate it, and I want it to be 270 degrees, like that. And that would be my data for a line graph. Now, to do a bar graph, I could do it very similarly. Nope, I don't want a folder, I want a drawing. And I'm again, title it graph. Same rules apply to all of the graphs. You need to have a title, you need to have both X and Y axis labeled. My data will go on here with points. So to make I can use my points as if a line, starting from the vertice. Let's say the first point was in 2010 was 2 liters. I would draw that line from there to there. My second data point, June 2011, was to 6 liters, so I can draw that from there to the 6 liter mark. And then you'll see I'll get my line along there. Let's look at bar graph next. So bar graph is good for comparing groups, and my groups will be on the x-axis and my units will be on the y. So same thing, go to select. I'm going to take all this, copy it, I'm going to paste it here, but I'm going to get rid of what I don't want. So this text box could be group 2. And I want this to be, let's say I want to get down to nitty gritty and get that centered. I just selected everything. I want it to be all centered, so there, now it's centered. This text box here, group 1. And again, I want that to be centered, so I'm going to select it, center it. There we go, that looks good. Now, these are my groups. Have that X labeled. My Y, I would label that as whatever the unit is that I'm measuring for my groups. Let's say I'm measuring feet, distance in feet. Distance traveled in feet. If I include the unit into the description, then I don't need my unit on the graph. So now for bar, get rid of these lines because that's not what I'm graphing. I'm going to use this bar graph for my different groups. I think a great way to do it would be using shapes. So shapes gives me an option to just put a shape right onto this graph. I'm going to use this square, or this rectangle rather, bring it straight up, and I could even change the color of that so that it looks different than the others. I can copy and paste that. That way I'll have the same width, scoot it over, and then I'm going to change the height of that. Make sure you're not on the angle or on the width, but on the height axis like this, and I can change it to whatever height that may be, and also change the color of that bar. So now I have my bar graph. Again, creating a new Google Drawing. Last is my pie chart. Now pie chart is best for the parts of a whole or graphing a percentage. Now for this one, again, title it please, graph, whatever your title is that you may be working on. A shape, I'm going to pick a circle for my pie. And for my pie, I'm going to, now I have this circle here and I can start working on it. I want to get rid of the fill color because if I put a line and it's underneath it, I'm not going to be able to see it. So I'm going to make my circle transparent, and I'm going to again change the line width so that that circle is easier to see. I'm going to use lines to find my midpoint. So from here to here, and from here to here. Now where these are meeting, I know I have my midpoint of my circle because whatever my percentages need to come into that. So I'm going to estimate, let's say I had two groups and my one was at 25%, or let's say I had three groups. One was 25%, one was 50%, and the other one was 25%. Well, that would be simple. I would know that I could just get rid of one of these lines. I would have one bar be 25, and one be, if I got rid of this line, the other group would be taking up 50%, and the third group would be taking up 25%. I could also do smaller numbers, like a 10%. I'm going to have to estimate that, though. 10% of this is going to be something like that. So there's one of my pies. To label it, I would put a text box out here and label it whatever that percentage of the group, the whole may be. Let's say, for example, rainforest temperatures. Then my next percentage was approximately 30%. Now I'm not doing 30% of this whole, but I'm doing 30% from this point. So I know this would be 25% here, so I need to take this and go for 30% from there. It's going to be something like that, could be. And I would label that 30%. If I can label it in here, that's fine. Otherwise I can do it outside, but I should probably put an arrow showing that this rainforest temperature is represented here. All right, well, that's a brief tutorial of how to do three different types of graphs: the line graph, a bar graph, and a pie chart on Google Drawing. Hopefully that helps you. Have a nice day.